Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTM for tonight's coverage of the season finale of the Race Club UK Shooting Stars Cup. As always, I'm Regan Clark. You join us here on our third and final broadcast on May 16th after an action-packed day of racing throughout both HCCL and through the Competizione Performance League. You join us here from Race Club UK's final round of the Shooting Stars Cup as we make our trip into holy ground here for Australian motorsports as you find us on the outskirts of Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia, right here at the Mount Panorama Circuit. Founded in 1938, comprised of 23 turns and 6.2 kilometres, that's 3.8 miles of FIA Grade 3. It's home of the largest calendar event in the Australian Supercars Championship, being the Bathurst 1000 that has ran since 1963. It also sees one of the largest events of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, the Maguire's Bathurst 12-hour, that has ran since 1991. It used to run races as the Australian Grand Prix in Grand Prix motor car racing from 1938 to 1958 on and off, even into the era of Formula One on two occasions in 1952 and later then 1958. It also saw Grand Prix motorcycle racing as the Australian Grand Prix from 1940 to 1988, and in 2002 and 2003 there was also the Bathurst 24-hour. This is a circuit above all things considered hallowed ground for not only Australian motorsports but endurance racing as a whole. Described by Kevin Estra as one part Macau, other parts Nürburgring, this circuit represents one of the most Herculean challenges faced by drivers at a fraction of the size of circuits like the Nürburgring or the Circuit de la Sarthe. The Mount Panorama Circuit is a proper car killer and will represent a very solid staging point here for any final fights in terms of either drivers or teams championship. And taking a look into the last couple of rounds to see the driver on screen at the moment, Will Friedman, was deployed by the Race Club UK team into round 3 at Brands Hatch, where he secured their first win away from what was VSR-led dominance in driver wins that season. That still has yet to stop, though, Race Club UK from taking stranglehold of the team's championship, now nearly double the points clear over VSR and looking to be the champions of the Shooting Stars Cup by the end of today. Simplay falls to third and now only 150 points ahead of ARL, the America's Racing League, in fourth and provisional last place. Taking a look at the regulations for today's event, much as what it's been over the course of the season at large, we're in the midst here of what was originally 30 minutes of free practice, but thanks to the gracious efforts of race control, we're able to extend it another 15 minutes so that we could get out of our last broadcast and into this one on time. Coming up then on schedule will still be 15 minutes of qualifying and 90 minutes of racing. 2 mandatory pit stops for both fuel and tyres. Now, in line with every broadcast we've had from the Shooting Stars Cup, we feel it obligated to inform you about what this event is all about. The Shooting Stars Cup is proudly run in support of charity. The Shooting Stars Children's Hospice, namely. They provide specialist care and support to families who have a baby, child, or young person with a life-limiting condition or whose child has died. Their purpose is simple but powerful: to help every family make every moment count. Operating across Surrey and London, their teams support families from diagnosis through end-of-life care and throughout bereavement, providing nursing, medical, emotional and practical support when it is needed the most. It costs around £12 million each year to provide this vital care, with only 29% of funding coming from the government. They rely heavily on fundraising and community support. Crucially, every 82 pence of every pound raised goes directly towards caring for children and supporting their families. We warmly welcome a donation of £10, and recommended donation is £10 from Race Control themselves, to be made directly via the official Just Giving page. Now, throughout the last 3 rounds heading in towards today's final, they've raised £808. We're 80% of the way through to the estimated goal of 1,000 raised by 36 generous supporters. And so taking a look away back into the session itself, Friedman, last round's race winner, now steps onto the mantle for one last go of things here in the Shooting Stars Cup, and taking a look at a unique set of rules to be played out tonight as we find the Joker has been played on the final round. Now, as it's been stated by Race Control, Team ARL will have 4 nominated drivers who can score double points. Simplay will have 3, VSR will have 2, and Race Club UK will have 1. And of those nominated drivers right now, ARL has submitted Wright, Prince, Butler and Ampuero. Simplay with Kleiss, Winspear and Varga. VSR with Kieran Rod and Tyler Vermack. And the driver on screen here will be Race Club UK's ace in the hole. Double points on the grabs here for Will Friedman. So taking a look for the end of this session, 5 minutes left to go in free practice at balance of performance before we get in towards qualifying today. A cornucopia of different data sets, but we find right now McLaren's on the short end of the stick and Ferrari's the one swinging it. The 488 and the 296 will both be losing double figures as the lightest in category, 30 kilos and 21 kilos respectively. Porsche, Nissan and Honda also lose double figures with 15 and 11 kilos respectively. BMW lose 9 kilos and Mercedes lose 3. Aston Martin gain 2 kilos with Lamborghini gaining 7. Bentley gained 10. Same story for that of Ford, which have a 19% restrictor in play at the moment. And McLaren with 22 kilos find themselves heaviest in class today. Watching them with Will Friedman, taking a look on the wider charts today, finding Tyler Vermack currently fastest in the session for Team VSI. He's one of 2 drivers that have been nominated for those double points yield. He and Kieran Rodd will be finding double points in today's round. Otherwise, it would have been Chris Davies in original estimates. We'll see, though, if that is the case for today. Right now, for Team VSR, Davies is on the grid. So too is Rodd. So right now, first and third is Team VSR's Kieran Rodd and Tyler Vermack. Between them, Matthias Claes of Simplay Motorsports also nominated for double points. Will Friedman in 4th, also nominated for double points by Race Club UK. Chris Davies rounds out the top 5. We'll see, though, Friedman down to the line, now up to 3rd and ahead of Kieran Rodd. Further down the line then, Lee Evans in 6th, Chris Clements in 7th, Wishful Winnings in 8th, Lars Rammensperger in 9th, and rounding out the top 10 is James Burns with Honda. We saw in early estimates from today's free practice session that it's looking to be a very capable performance on the horizon for James Burns with Honda today. Took an early stab of a fastest time, but as we caught on with him today, now drops to the back of the top 10. Chris Leish in 11th, Ben Godden in 12th, Benedict Varga in 13th, Nick Lamming in 14th, and Wright, who we saw not too long ago then, secure his 2nd win in the Competizione Performance League World Series in an action-packed triple header at a very rainy Hungaroring, returns to dry racing with Lamborghini, currently 15th in the session. It's been a bit of a whiplash for him today. Just under 3 minutes left to go then of free practice. 22 cars in attendance for the final round of the championship. And it's been a very interesting day throughout here on May 16th. Triple header of events from multi-class racing to triple headers and then all the way here to an endurance race to round things out here at Bathurst. High hopes then for Friedman's performance, trailing away from what was a win on debut to Brands Hatch last round at round 3 of the championship only a few weeks ago. High expectations, of course, with him now nominated as Race Club UK's double points nominee, as it would be. Team VSR playing their hand with Tyler Vermack and Kieran Rodd, both of which amongst the top 5 at the moment. Simplay also playing their hand with Claes. The grid, for the most part, falls predominantly silent. We see there running out wide off the chase was Will Friedman. Waiting to see then the end of the session. Nearest to the line, number 23. So we try to go and catch on board here with Wishful Winnings. He's back into the pit lane with Team VSR. And as you can see, they're harbouring heavy front-end damages. He's back into the paddock. Number 10, nearest to the line. That'll be for Nico Prince with the Americas Racing League. Down to the line from 19th. Goes up and ahead of Juan C. Ampuero. Was nominated as one of their double points winners. Ooh, and we see there just in towards Hell Corner. Big hit there for Prince. 18th on the grid at the moment. Nearest the line, number 95. So we go to locate now on board with Ben Godden of Race Club UK, the current leaders of this Interleague Championship. Last time around, it was VSR who took victory at the hands of Cas van Velzen in the one-off Interleague in Silverstone. Now it appears to be the time here for Race Club UK. They've held things hand over fist in the team's championship. And all it takes now is one more race for them to seal the deal. And they will be the champions of the Shooting Stars Cup. In terms of the drivers' standings, it's certainly an interesting one to pick apart just with how unique the point scoring system is for this series. Taking a look into it, currently Richard Hall in the lead with 1,080 points. Joseph St. Ludovic in second with Roel Hermsen in third. We find Wright in fourth with 700 points, and in a joint fifth behind him, both with 685 points, is William Cairns and Chris Leish. Behind them, down in seventh place, is Lars Rammensperger, currently holding on to the stead of 680 points. He's only 5 points off of the two in front of him. Behind him, in 8th place, is Chris Clements. In 9th place is Wishful Winnings with 665 points. And then rounding out the top 10 is Ben Godden on our screens at the moment, 640 points. A very bizarre point scoring system, I must say, taking a look into it. In the overall championship, a race win gives you 450 points, and then it goes down in increments of either 5 to 15, as we've seen here, as it goes from 1st to 10th, 450, 435, 420, 395, 380, 365, 350, 335, 320, and 305. And now that goes all the way down to 40th in that sort of rhythm and order, all the way down to where 40th gets you 35 points. So it's much more of a almost IMSA style point scoring system we see here in this series for the Drivers' Championship. Right now, though, Richard Hall in a definitive lead as we head now in towards qualifying. 15 minutes of quali at the end of free practice. We do see here that is Antonio Angeletta. Oh, someone wasn't supposed to be here with that livery, were they? Yeah, I think he's been caught red-handed there. The number 100 caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Still had the gold livery on from VSR. So taking a look out onto the track, the number 420 is first among the fray, James Burns with Race Club UK. Sadly, no qualifying predictions from us tonight. An issue obtaining the data for this. Following on then with Burns, taking a look at what we have as somewhat of a provisional qualifying prediction. This was in a snapshot taken just before the end of today's session. So to keep an eye out for these drivers, Vermaak, Claes, Friedman, Rod, Davies, Evans, Clements, Winnings, Rammensperger, and Burns. So Burns was still part of that top 10 with every chance that he could do the same on the run in towards this qualifying session. Very short, very sweet session they've got at hand here. 15 minutes here in Bathurst. And from the point of view here of the Honda, we'll be getting our first track tour in this series of Bathurst. We've been to this track not too long ago then. We were here just last week with the folks over at the Competizione Performance League World Series in a fantastic round of 120 minutes worth of racing, as it would turn out to be in that round just gone. And now we'll wrap up the championship here, and if we're looking a little further into the future, we'll be heading back to Bathurst not long from now. We're also here not long ago with the folks over on VSR. And it's been, so far then, a fantastic last couple of few visits to this magnificent circuit. One of our favourites here on TRTN, and an absolute bucket list location. So then following on board with James Burns, number 420 for Race Club UK, as he makes his way down through to Murray's Corner here at the Mount Panorama circuit, kicking off the first of our flying laps in qualifying for the last round of the championship. Down across the line he goes, and on towards turn 1 as we begin the run back up the mountain. In through the Hell Corner at turn 1, named after there originally being a stump on the inside of that corner in the 30s, and since it had a very early history in motorcycle racing, if you clipped that corner a little too close on the inside, I think you could figure out where you were off to. Heading on to the first of two major straightaways on this track, 1.1 kilometers that comprise the mountain straight as we begin the ascent uphill in towards Griffin's Bend at turn 2. Now this is where things really start to narrow up into the cuttings, turns 3 and 4. In towards Quarry Corner. Much less imaginative naming, named after the fact that there was a quarry nearby. In through, now at Quarry Corner. In towards Reed Park. Then through to Frog Hollow, turns 8 and 9. Then to Solman. Down here between turns 9 and 10 into McPhillamy Park. And now down through Brock Skyline, otherwise just called Skyline, named after Australian touring car legend Peter Brock. Down through to the Dipper. Into the S as we go. Now down at Forest's elbow. So far, so good for James Burns and Honda. Out through to turn 19 as we begin the run onto the second of two and the longer of two straights. 1.9 kilometers here on the Conrod Straight. Right behind him, you see Tyler Vermack in the 888. He's won several times at Bathurst in a few different championships, so keeping an eye out there for that 888 on the chances that he could bring home yet another victory for VSR. Down through to the Chase. Used to be called the Caltex Chase after the petrochemical company of the same name. Turns 20 through 22 represent one of our major overtaking spots on track at the moment. Down through to Murray's at turn 23, named after Australian touring car legend Bill Murray. And as we mentioned in our last go around of the track, not to be confused with the actor of the same name. Down across the line then, James Burns 202.537, but Tyler Vermack goes fastest. Then Matthias Claes by 187 thousandths. Across the line, we saw a moment ago there, that was the number 74 Chris Leish, but now down to fifth as Ben Godden goes fourth. Wright goes fifth with Lamborghini and Team ARL. 444 nearest the line. Here comes Lee Evans. We saw from behind him as well. Wishful Winnings goes fourth. So Evans, Vermack and Winnings. 3 VSR cars in the top 5 right off the bat. Number 208 nearest. Here comes Will Friedman. Across the line he goes. Second fastest by 0.06 of a second. From behind him, that was the number 15. Chris Clements, 9th. Number 87 across the line. Just a moment ago there. And as it would appear, I believe no time set there for the number 87 across the line. Having a look in now to see. Across the line a moment ago went Nico Prince, number 10, with Team ARL Porsche. Now across the line, number 51. Just see there, Lars Rammensberger to 7th after his first flying lap of today. Number 600 nearest the line. This is Brett Winspear, nominated as one of the double points attendees here for the Simplay Motorsports team, but he finds himself without a line as much as we see from behind him. Roll Hermsen goes to 8th. Nearest the line, number 4. Now going to catch on board here, Sean McNally. One of the developing drivers from Team VSR. We've seen his story over the last couple of seasons over on the VSR GT3 Championship, where he began in the bronze category, now a mainstay competitor in their silver division. Down to the line goes McNally in the number 4. Nissan across the line, sadly no time set in that last go around, so he's still got plenty of time, 9 minutes left to go for him. Nearest the line, number 146, Juan C. Ampuero, one of the Team ARL double points winners. We now see here 15th after his first go. Looking here, 566, Benedict Varga, trouble down at, looking here, the run of things at Murray's. Claes across the line, 42 thousandths in the lead over Vermack, who now sandwiches himself in between Claes and Friedman. We have 3 cars then within less than a tenth of each other front to back. Actually, it would just be a little over a tenth because it's going to be there, the scope of 102 thousandths encompassing that podium. Actually, no, that's it's not respective. That's from the leader. So we see here from Friedman, there's still a chance for him to shove up a position all the way up to pole position, and not by a close margin, mind you, by 0.3 of a second. Chris Clements joins the fray, now 4th. Number 87, nearest the line. I believe they missed out on the last go around. Now we get to see onto the timing charts. I believe there did go the number 87. And that being for Nick Lamming, 14th for Race Club UK. Number 60, number 51, and number 100 approaching the line. You see for the 51, Rammensberger. Then behind him, the number 100. And that, I believe, yes, was Antonio Angeletta. Of course, he accidentally joined with his standard VSR livery, not the Team VSR livery. So we see here from the 100, down through turn 1 and onto the run, onto the mountain straight. So far then, multiple drivers still having yet to have set a time. Steve McMillan, Benedict Varga, Brett Butler, as it would stand there as well. We see for Amador Dominguez and Kieran Rodd. This is the most peculiar among them when you consider that Rodd is one of 2 nominated drivers for VSR to place points. Now, we've seen his habit in the past of deliberately starting from the back, but given the fact the team is relying on him here for double points, this is definitely quite a gamble. When you originally consider as well, it was going to be Vermack and, as it stood, Chris Davies that were originally nominated for Team VSR's double points. Now it happens to be the case here where they're taking a huge risk with the 61. I can vouch for his ability personally because we've seen many times on our broadcasts of VSR's various GT3 championships on the run when we started in Season 7 and still are in Season 11 with the chances to go into Season 12 later this year. We've seen plenty of occasions where this man has started from the back of a grid and made light work of it. But I think this is a bit of a cut above what we're seeing in VSR. We've got plenty of teams trying to put their best foot forward. This is certainly a bit of a gamble. I'll be very curious to see how it pays off for them. Speaking of Chris Davies, he's now gone 4th in this session, of right alongside that of Tyler Vermack. So then, currently fastest in the session, Will Friedman, then Matthias Claes, then Tyler Vermack, then Chris Davies, then Chris Clements. In your top 5, then rounding out the top 10, James Burns, Lars Rammensperger, Lee Evans, Wishful Winnings, and Chris Leish. 5.5 minutes left to go then. Number 600 is nearest to the line, that being for Brett Winspear. And we do see a bit of a leap of position there from what was 21st, now 18th. The number 600. Number 4 nearest to the line. We go to catch back on board with Sean McNally of Team VSR. Five minutes left to go then, and what has so far been a very exciting qualifying session, one that was very closely met up until that absolute barnstormer of a time by Will Friedman. McNally stays 19th after that last lap. Number 548 is nearest. We go to catch on with them at this time. It's just the 540 there, and that's right. And from behind him, we see the 888. That was Tyler Vermack. Now gets even closer to Will Friedman. Up and ahead of Matthias Claes. Vermack now second by 73 thousandths of a second. Number 442 is nearest to the line. Across the line a moment ago went the 442. In the case of Matthias Claes, stays in 3rd for the time being. Right behind him there, you can see what looks to be the number 566 there, not 540. 566, that's Benedict Varga with Simplay. One of the nominated double points. 4 minutes left to go in the session so far. Nearest the line, number 420. So James Burns, currently 6th in the session for Honda. 58 thousandths away from Chris Clements in the top 5. So still very close to be had there among the Race Club UK cars. Down through turn 1 he goes. Number 60, nearest to the line. Trying to catch on board here, Steve McMillan of Team ARL across the line, 21st in his last go around. Number 5 nearest to the line now. We go to catch on with Roel Hermsen. And behind him, the number 15. Across the line there, 15th for Hermsen. And as it stands, just under a 10th away from Juan C. Ampuero in 14th. And the number 146 Porsche for Team ARL. Meanwhile, looking back up at the front of the order, we do see here trouble for Vermack. Just in towards McPhillamy Park and then down towards Skyline. That's disaster for him. He still has the time here to try and get out for one last go around. He'll have the time for one out lap and then one flying lap just as it ticks over to the end of the session. But that was a big slide out for Vermack. That's something he's going to be very aware of for the run in towards the race today. Something he'll be eager to avoid. Joining him there on the pit exit, the number 23 Mustang from Team VSR, Wishful Winnings. Out of the paddock. Number 74 nearest to the line. And for Chris Leish, stays 10th. Number 442 nearest to the line. Here comes Claes. Does find an improvement, but not enough for position at the time. Benedict Varga moves up to 17th. Nearest is the number 600. Brett Winspear. Then from behind him, the number 146 of Juan C. Ampuero. Across the line there, Winspear stays in 19th. Ampuero now out through turn 23. Heading up to the line here. 2 minutes left to go. On to his last flying lap of the session then. Juan C. Ampuero stays in 14th. Number 87 across the line a moment ago, and that was for Nick Lamming. Stays 16th in the session. 444 nearest to the line, Lee Evans. What can he bring to the table here from 8th place across the line? Leaps up to 6th ahead of Burns and Rammensperger. Now we start to see their level on time, it's worth pointing out, with Chris Clements. exactly the same time we have between these two here, a 2:01.997 for Chris Clements and Lee Evans. Number 5 across the line a moment ago, number 15 nearby. So can Clements break away from Evans? Across the line, yes, he can. Now within a second of that fastest time. Number 95 across the line, Ben Godden. Just outside of that top 10 at the moment. Needs about 0.3 of a second, just under actually, to get himself back into a top 10 start. Currently heads up the 6th row of the grid. We'll see, though, many of these drivers now well past the point of no return. Number 61 has been disqualified for driving in the wrong direction. So it very much seems to be the case here that Kieran Rodd is back on his old antics. He used to be part of a group that we coined the Back Row Bandits. It was him and another driver, John O'Driscoll, who went on to become the Season 3 MSC champion, which we also covered live here on TRTN. Number 23, nearest to the line. Wishful Winnings, 9th. Still has enough time for one more flying lap. 5:40. He's right now up to 11th. Godden down to 12th. Number 442, Matthias Claes, stays in the same margin he was before, still 3rd, but still has one more go of things here on track. It's worth noting that 888 did manage to get onto one more lap here. Tyler Vermack needs to break 73 thousandths off of Will Friedman in order to take pole position, but it is worth noting we are scraping really close into what that upper ceiling may entail for these drivers. Nearest to the line then, just saw at the end of that session, Juancy Ampuero of Team ARL into that top 10. Of course, was one of the nominated double points scorers for this round. From behind him, Nick Lamming saw the checkered line there for 16th for the end of this session, but great turnaround for the 146. Right now, Mark's having a glance at it there. The only ARL car inside of that top 10. Number 100, nearest. For Antonio Angeletta. From behind him as well, the number 95 approaching the line. Trouble for the number 23. So that's going to be the end of the session for Wishful Winnings with Team VSR Ford. Angeletta to 14th across the line, number 95. We see there for Ben Godden, 12th for the end of this session. 888 then, nearest to the line. And this is the one that we've been waiting for. Can he clear 73 thousandths of a second? It is a gap that seems so small, yet so far away. And every slight deviation on the racing line is going to have that kind of effect for this one here. Tyler Vermack in the 888. Can he beat Will Friedman to pole position here in Bathurst, down across the line for the end of round 4 qualifying? He can't. But a very good effort nonetheless then for Vermack with Team VSR, one of 2 double point scorers for the team, the other being Kieran Rodd, who starts plumb last from the back row. It's Will Friedman on pole position then here in Bathurst, with Vermack in 2nd, Claes in 3rd, Davies 4th, Clements in 5th, Rammensberger in 6th, Evans in 7th, Burns 8th, Winnings in 9th, and Ampuero rounding out the top 10. We'll get a full grid read when we see the grid form up in just a moment's time, but what a qualifying that was then. Taking a look at it, we have currently 6 cars front to back by less than a second at the front of that field, from Friedman down to Rammensberger. So then taking a look back into the regulations at hand for today, coming away from 15 minutes of qualifying, up next is 90 minutes of racing with 2 mandatory pit stops. So similar to what we saw actually not too long ago today over on HCCL. Very similar structured format here with a 90-minute race and 2 mandatory stops, because that's going to mean we're on a 30-30-30 here in Bathurst. So 30-minute stint to open, then a pit stop, then another 30 minutes, then another pit stop, then the last 30 minutes to the checkered flag. To remind you as well, this event is in fundraising for the Shooting Star Children's Hospice. We're currently £808 through to a £1,000 target by the end of this championship. That's been raised by 36 generous supporters. They're 80% of the way to their current goal. If you're joining us on Twitch at the moment, you'll see now posted in the chat is a link to the Just Giving page. And if you're watching on YouTube, it'll be included in the video description. If it's not included in the video description, then the link has sadly expired. So then waiting for the grid to form up for our 3rd and last race of today. Right now, looks to be bright and sunny conditions. No current suggestion on if we'll be seeing anything even remotely close to inclement weather here in Australia. Normally a track we find to be very firmly in the bright, hot and sunny conditions, much in line with many of the major events to have been held here in the last couple of years. So then, seeing the grid form up, currently conditions are partly cloudy, optimum conditions, and it seems to be much more on the stereotypical side for Australian heat. 32 degrees on track. In ambient temperature is 25, 32 on track. So as it happens then, taking a look at this grid for the fourth and final round of the Race Club UK Shooting Stars Cup. Will Friedman on pole position, looking to go double for trouble here after his maiden win in Brands Hatch last round. Tyler Vermaak in second, with Matthias Claes in third, Chris Davies in fourth, and Chris Clements in fifth. Lars Rammensperger in sixth, and Lee Evans in seventh. Burns in eighth, Winnings in ninth, and Ampuero rounds out the top 10. Leish in 11th, with Godden in 12th, Angeletta in 13th, with Hermsen in 14th, Lamming in 15th, Varga in 16th, Prince in 17th, and Winspear in 18th. Rounding out the top 20 then, McNally and McMillan 19th and 20th. Butler in 21st, Dominguez in 22nd, Bacala in 23rd, Rod in 24th, and Wright in 25th. I believe a disconnect there for Wright, as originally it was Rod to start from the back of the field. Now he'll start an extra position up, but he is on that back row. And Wright will start from the back of the pack there. And so a minute and a half before we get in towards today's formation lap for the race at hand. Now, to remind you of the regulations that have come into effect for tonight's race, as we just have a quick glance at it here. The list of drivers that have been nominated to score double points in line with a Joker strategy introduced for the last round of the championship to make things a little bit interesting. Team ARL have 4 nominated drivers, Simplay have 3, VSR have 2, and Race Club will have 1. ARL has nominated Wright, Prince, Butler and Ampuero. Simplay has nominated Claes, Winspear and Varga. VSR has nominated Rod and Vermaak, originally having nominated Davies and Vermaak, and now having swapped that, and this is from what we were told, was to Rod. And Race Club UK has nominated the man on pole, Will Friedman. We've seen some seriously feral drives out of this one here. He's a notable member of this grid, Will Friedman. We've seen him in multiple championships, and I think the scariest thing one can do is be in front of him. So that's something definitely to consider here for Tyler Vermaak, a driver with plenty of wins at this circuit across multiple championships. He's won in MSC, he's won in VSR, and he's won over on NLRL. We've seen what he can do before. Friedman is a very capable driver, so this is going to be a proper star-studded front row to see what these two are capable of. They're really here to test their mettle with an hour and a half's worth of racing here in the Australian heat, right here in Bathurst. So, pulling away from the field then, Will Friedman. We wait then for the grid to pull away. Friedman and Vermaak at the front row. Right behind them then, Matthias Claes and Chris Davies. An all-McLaren second row. Ford stands alone then in spite of their engine restrictions for this round of the championship. We've said it before and we'll say it again. You're only nerfing the machine, not the man. In terms of notable overtaking spots, well, it is a bit of a tough one to discuss here at Bathurst because it's really a case of who dares wins and who slips up first. Because taking a look at our first major overtaking spot, you'd assume it's turn 1. Well, it's far too sharp and often does lead to accidents, but we would still consider it an overtaking spot, albeit maybe not through the first lap. Where you're really going to get your first major opportunities here is on the run up towards Griffin's Bend at turn 2. Other opportunities then are down at the cuttings, where you're going to be hoping that the driver you're chasing has gone out wide and you can sneak in on the inside. But again, we have seen accidents there in the past. And then your next major overtaking spots are coming down at Forest Elbow, as it would happen there, as the majority of that second sector is a bit of a follow-through section. It's very difficult to go side by side, even harder to get overtakes in unless someone is barreling off the track at a great rate of knots. Down out of turn 18 then will be your next overtaking opportunity if you're able to stay close enough to your opponent. Then out through turn 19 and onto the Conrod Straight is where once again overtaking opportunities will be aplenty, with the opportunity for straight line speed adjacent cars like the Mustang, like the BMW and even like the Nissan to really spread their wings. Then your major overtaking opportunity is going to be down at the Chase, down at turns 20 through 22. And then last but not least at Murray's. But again, you're going to have to be nearly right on top of your opponent to be able to get an overtake done down at either 23 or 1. So making our way down through Skyline, this is going to be a heavy area of concern because coming down in this section, you have this crest here that kicks the back end of the car up and away when you're going in nearly flat out like most of these drivers have done over the course of today's session. Stability is a huge concern in that mountaintop section through Sector 2. It's going to be a tough one for these drivers today, especially those mid-engine cars from McLaren. There is a known stability issue for the 720S, but all of these drivers have been able to firm it so far. We did see a little inkling of what that looks like for Tyler Vermack over the course of qualifying when he spun down at McPhillamy Park. And with how narrow the section of the track is, any kind of spill over there can lead to a multi-car pileup. We've even seen it on the wider sections, such as out of Turn 1, which we saw far earlier in Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League. And if you're joining us tomorrow, Season 6 Round 1 gets underway at 6:30 PM BST. If you're joining us now, we're on the formation lap into the 4th and final round of the Race Club UK Shooting Stars Cup, right here in Mount Panorama. It's Will Friedman on pole, Tyler Vermack alongside for a star-studded front row. Then behind them, Clace versus Davies. Race Club UK looking to solidify their position at the head of the table here when it comes to the team's championship. Nearly double the points over VSR. And they're looking to seal the lid on it here in tonight's event. To remind you then of your double point scorers for this round of the championship. Friedman for Race Club UK, Kieran Rod and Tyler Vermack for VSR. Matthias Clace, Brett Winspear and Benedict Varga for Simplay, and Wright, Prince, Butler and Ampuero for America's Racing League. To give you a visual guide on who's who, the black and red cars are Simplay's, the white and black cars are Race Club UK's, the bright neon green and black cars are your VSR's, and your blue and black cars are your America Racing League's cars. Heading then down towards the line here for the 4th and final round of this championship. We see, though, from Will Friedman is... I was about to say... Oh, surely he couldn't go into the pit lane. He certainly kept us on the edge of our chair there. He's messing with us. He knows that we're watching him on the run down towards the line here. 90 minutes of racing set to follow then. 25 cars in all for the 4th and final round of the Shooting Stars Cup. Here by Race Club UK, right here in Bathurst, New South Wales, Australia. We are Green and Racing here in Mount Panorama. A brilliant getaway then from Tyler Vermack to keep himself absolutely levelled there with Will Friedman for the run down through Hell Corner for the first time. Great getaway from the leading pair. Further down the line, we see the rest of the pack filtering on through. They're side by side for the run uphill. Tyler Vermack has the inside for the run up towards Griffin's Bend, but it's Will Friedman with slightly more power down range. Up over the crest on the mountain straight in towards Turn 2. Vermack's to the inside, but Friedman holds his ground. Vermack leaps for the inside down at Griffin's Bend. That opens the doors up to allow Clace on through into second. Seeing here from how congested it'll get on the run up through the cuttings, Tyler Vermack leads in Bathurst. Will Friedman a little squirrely there under the brakes in towards the cuttings for the first time. Taking a look further down the order, we see from Angeletta, and you see just how chock-a-block for traffic it can be down in that opening sector. It is diabolical. We see here from Nico Prince chasing Nick Lamming in through Quarry. And a few drivers are destined to scrape that barrier. Mark my words on that one. We do see a bit of trouble out in front. And yes, it is for having a glance in there. It looks like one of the Race Club cars. Yes, it's one of the McLarens. Ben Godden, as it would appear, the number 95, is in trouble. Angeletta gets out past him. You can see just how many cars are trying to pile down through Skyline. Winnings, Angeletta, Burns, and then behind them Nick Lamming and Nico Prince. As we see a huge pile-up of cars out behind, trying to navigate out past that McLaren. That's all of the ARL cars trying to filter out past there. We see from McMillan, Butler and Bacala. Now up and ahead. Looking up at the front here, we can see fighting amongst the top 6, but right out in the front of the pack here is Vermack versus Friedman. From behind them, Matthias Clace for Simplay. Then behind them, Chris Clements, Chris Davies, Lars Rammensperger. Behind them is Lee Evans.
Wansi and Puero, great start then for Team ARL. The number 146, one of their nominated double point scorers, now 8th place up and ahead of Leish and Hermsen to round out the top 10 after lap 1 of racing here in Bathurst. Behind them is Benedict Varga. Angeletta in 12th with Burns in 13th. We see there for Wishful Winnings, disaster for the number 23, strikes down at the chase as he drops way down through the order. We see now barreling towards that pit lane among several cars here. We see is Wishful Winnings also in the pit lane at the same time as him. As it would appear, Kieran Rodd now into the pits, and as it would appear, that's James Burns. A very bizarre start to racing then here in Bathurst, but not one that was totally unexpected. Wright's also in the pit lane. We also see is Butler. A very rough start then for multiple teams. We see up at the front of action, though, it's Vermaak versus Friedman. Two drivers with a very keen experience of this track already. Ben Godden now into the pit lane in the number 95. Getting a look in here if we can. Tyler Vermaak leading here in Bathurst. Right behind him, though, Will Friedman. Out through to Skyline. Now we know there is that stability issue for McLaren, but Ford equally has that problem with the back end going light up through the crest at Skyline Hill. Down through the dipper into the S's. Great follow through then by these two drivers. 0.4 of a second apart from one another. Into turn 18 we go. Out through Forest Elbow. Now to turn 19. Onto the Conrod. Behind them, Clace and Clements getting closer and closer to the fight for third. We see there the damage for the 420 among several cars. James Burns in the pit lane. We see multiple drivers now having left the pits, but let's go to catch on board here if we can. Clace versus Clements. Meanwhile, up in front, things are getting far, far closer here for that 888 and the 208 right behind him. We see here from the point of view of Tyler Vermaak, we want to go and catch on board with the Ford chasing him down. Catching on board then with the 208, Will Friedman in pursuit. This is for the battle of first place. We see here down through at turn 23, an hour and 25 minutes, I should say. We're in the first 5 minutes of racing. We do have yellow flags out. As it stands then, that's for the 566. I believe that's Benedict Varga in trouble. Having a glance, yes, it is Benedict Varga, but he is back up and running. So back into green flag conditions. Back onto the fight then amongst the race leaders. Just quickly here to see their run back up the mountain straight onto lap 2. In that last lap, 201.560, the new fastest time of the session so far then. Set by this one here. And back into that fight for the lead. Into the cuttings we go. These two nearly neck and neck here in towards turn 3 and 4. Pushing each other up that hill. McLaren versus Ford. Now 2.1 seconds up over the nearest car being Matthias Clace in the 442 Simplay Motorsports McLaren. Up through to Quarry. You can see it here just how close he's willing to stay. And it's this kind of relentless hunting attitude we see here from Friedman that makes him such a universally feared driver on the grid. The Terminator in the 208 is not backing down here from Vermaak. Down through to the dipper. You can see he's sliding his way on through, giving it the full Sterling Moss in that McLaren. It's remarkable to see just how far these two are willing to push the envelope out. You see hugging the wall down through turn 18. An exceptional run there through Sector 2 has given Vermaak about half a second worth of breathing space on the Conrod. But that's going to start to bleed away from him because that Ford's in the slipstream. And even in spite of that engine penalty, he's not going anywhere. Taking a look then at some of the other fights going on track at the moment. Nearby fights going on. Hermsen v Leish. Evans versus Ramensberger, which has started to get closer and closer. We see the Nissan there being trailed as well by Wansi Ampuero and Chris Leish. Looking further down the order, Rod versus Wright. Lamming versus Varga versus Prince, another one in consideration. But of course, the elephant in the room is that leading fight. Race Club UK versus VSR. Will Friedman, last round's race winner versus Tyler Vermaak. Down in towards turn 1. These two still jostling for position up and around turn 1. Behind them, Matthias Clace of Simplay Motorsport. Firmly in the slipstream here, so back on board with Will Friedman. Vermaak holding the inside away from him. See a little earlier onto the brakes, and suddenly that inside line has become a little bit more viable, but he now has accidentally played himself a bit because in towards the cuttings, he's on the outside, so falling back in behind Vermaak. So far, we're seeing stellar defense then of the lead by the 888. 208 right on his rear bumper, though. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Up through Quarry. The Mustang, no stranger then to the various bends and straights of this circuit. The Gen 7 Mustang being part of the Supercars Gen 3 regulations, with its predecessor, the 6th generation Mustang, being part of the Gen 2s. Now into the pit lane goes the 23 Trouble, I believe they're for Wishful Winnings, who is now, I'm told, out of this race after an incident down at the Forest Elbow. Speaking of, we're down to this section now with our leading duo of Vermack and Friedman. They're 1.7 seconds over Clace, who is in turn ahead of Clements. Looking back in for close fighting, Evans versus Rammensperger. We just saw a knock against the wall there for Chris Leish, who's in turn up and ahead of Roll Hermsen. Doesn't look like anything long standing there on damage. Evans in pursuit of Rammensperger. Now, in the context of straight line speed, Nissan is a name that doesn't often get to come up because few, if any, drivers are still using the R35. But we have a nice pocket of racing talent using all of the Nissans at this time. And Evans is certainly one among them. We've also seen his recent move over towards Mercedes in the local context of VSR, but in his time spent with Nissan, he was more than capable, and it also gave us a key insight, really, to what the Nissan has under the bonnet. That VR38 DETT is an absolute rocket when it comes to straight line speed. It's one of the more underrated choices for straight line speed. Looking back up to our leading duo, with Vermack and Friedman still looking to clash here on the run up towards turn 2. Vermack holding centre mass of the road into Griffins. He knows ultimately he's scrubbing a lot of that momentum he'd need for the run up through, but knowing how narrow the track is, knows that Friedman wouldn't dare go for a move he didn't think he could make. Up through Quarry. Also worth getting on board with here is Lamming v Prince, side by side in towards Griffins. This is currently in the contention for 13th place as they go up and around Griffins Bend. In front of them is Benedict Varga. Seen here with Nico Prince, holds his ground, but he slams on the brakes there, and it's a huge pile-up down at the cuttings. Collecting there was Nick Lamming, but he's got back up and running. It's Nico Prince who's been left stranded facing the wrong way on the road right now. Back in with our leading duo as they now encounter James Burns' Honda off the exit of turn 19. We see for Nico Prince, he's back into the pit lane after that incident. That's likely him out of this race as well. And scrolling around then away from the leading drivers just to see where some of the fights are concerned right now. We see 0.7 of a second between Evans and Rammensperger for the contention of having a glance here, 6th place on track. Looking to catch back in then with the 888, who's got half a second on the 208. Tyler Vermack still leads for Team VSR. Now, if he's able to bring home a victory of his very own today, he'll give VSR their 3rd victory in these races after Fake Galaxy and Carlos Dish won in rounds 1 and 2 in Italy and Belgium. Only recently then, on our visit to Brands Hatch at round 3 of the championship, did their fortunes turn for Race Club UK, with Will Friedman giving them their first victory outright in a race. Now, where they've been leading the team's championship, which is really where it all matters for them, they couldn't find any yet found glories on track as they were routinely being beaten to the punch at the top step of the podium by VSR-led talent. And now we see their fate has swiftly changed with the signing of Will Friedman. Up through Quarry Corner. Watching here over the rear view, just so you can get a bit of a physical understanding of the distance between these two, or lack thereof, as we come down through McPhillamy in towards Skyline. You see off in the background there, that's the 420. And the 442 there in behind him. Down through the dipper we go. These two, at the very most, about 2 car lengths from one another as they make their way down through to the Forest Elbow, turn 18. And so far for Vermack, the strategy has been just to hug the inside wall, and it does seem to be working for him. It's keeping him away from that far side wall, which is quite jagged. It's not a smooth structure. It will catch the car if you go in on it, unlike some of the other walls on this track. 0.3 of a second and reeling him in. Let's take a look at some of the other fights whilst these two make their way down towards the chase. Davies, 0.7 of a second from Clements. Evans, 0.7 of a second from Rammensberger. We see for Friedman then, didn't make the lunge down through the chase. In the pit lane at the moment is Nico Prince, but likely a case then we could be seeing yet another DNF in this race after multiple already in what has been a very hectic opening 15 minutes. Leish versus Ampuero is on the cards here. Half a second for 8th place. And as these two start to fizzle out a little bit, we do see quite a bit of a slide off the exit of turn 1 for Tyler Vermack. And that's dropped him now to 0.4 of a second. We'll cut back on with them in a moment's time here, taking a look around the track once again to see Evans v Rammensberger now doubled in distance from 0.7 to 1.4. It's worth noting here for Kieran Roddy, started towards the back of the field, is now inside the top 20. Leish v Ampuero, still on the cards. We see here from Friedman, 0.2 of a second from Vermack. So we have two fights here to follow on with in tandem, making their way up and around the quarry corner in towards Frog Hollow. Reed Park, Solman and McPhillamy, the leading duo at the moment. We also get to see that fight for 8th place between Ampuero and Leish. It's just witchcraft, really, to see how well he's got that car set up. It seems almost effortless how he's tackling this section. It's one of the most difficult sectors of tarmac we've ever seen on ACC, and can even make or break your performance down in that area of the track. And he just makes it look so easy. He, as a Texter F1, I believe that's Stefan Nikolai in our chat at the moment. Saying racing at Mount Panorama is like doing a one-chip challenge. Yeah, I really do suppose it is, because this is a track that bites back, and bites back hard. Now we see here that Leish up and ahead of Ampuero. Just in the meantime, though, yellow flag, the 566, has now been brought back into the pit lane. That's for Benedict Varga of Simplay Motorsports. Now, he's one of their key players on the double point system right now. That could be trouble for them if they're down yet another member. You see, though, now that they've settled into a bit of a rhythm here after the first quarter hour of racing, Friedman and Vermack plateauing at around 3 to 5 tenths of a second. They get closer into sections like the cuttings here, but of course there's just not enough room for there to be a lunge made for position. So we're cut back on board to see fighting here for Chris Leish, who's now ahead of Juan C. Ampuero, who's now down to 9th. Leish now to 8th place. Seeing here from Ampuero's point of view, up through to the cuttings. A very treacherous section of tarmac here in towards McPhillamy. Checking back in with the leaders, 0.4 of a second as they make their way back onto the Conrod. I have the habit these two are going to be very close to each other for the greater bulk of today's race. These are two drivers very well met on this track when it comes to their ability. When you consider in about 13 minutes time as well, we'll be seeing the bulk of our first pit stops in today's race. These two have made a phenomenal first stint of it, 6.5 seconds up from the nearest car to them in just over 15 minutes worth of racing. Checking back in to see here Ampuero v Hermsen for 9th. Reluctantly having dropped a position, originally was in that fight for 8th place with Chris Leish. Now Roel Hermsen gets up and ahead of him. Looking back in over the leading duo, 0.3 of a second. It's going to be a tough one to shake away from these two, as really has been the case in any fight involving either Vermaak or Friedman, that these two will suddenly shift in terms of positions on the sort of flip of a switch, really. They are that fast when it comes to it. They do not wait around for positions to fall into their lap. If they think they can go for it, they are very quick about it. Now checking in here, a new fight found for 5th place. Lars Rammensperger versus Chris Davies. Behind them, Lee Evans. This might be one to go and watch on with then. As just taking one last look there from the leading duo before we head over towards the run of things here for Rammensperger v Davies. Heading up through Quarry Corner, on board them with the number 51 of Race Club UK. Nearly grazing there the wall of death between Solman and McPhillamy Park. He's in pursuit of 5th, but he might have to keep an eye out for the car behind him, as he could be finding himself in a defensive fight for 6th. There may be a comment worth making then for the Nissans. If we go to catch on board here with that of Lee Evans, on with the Nismo, making his way out from turn 19. There is very much a chance for him to fight for 6th place here. You see that the McLarens are able to hold him off on the Conrod. He's just not close enough to get any kind of slipstream off of him at this time. Now quickly glancing back up at the racing lead here to find 0.2 of a second. Will Friedman, you could almost see there was the attitude to try and maybe go for the inside, but given how sharp this corner is, even if he can hold him, that McLaren will have enough in the straight to hold the inside into the next corner. So this is what he's strategizing for now. And Vermaak, already aware of this, is slowly but surely teetering over to that right-hand side of the road to force Friedman to go the long distance around. Problem is, he's leaving himself short off the exit of Griffins. Down through the turns 3 and 4. Still firmly in the lead of this by multiple seconds now over the nearest car, being Matthias Claes in 3rd. But these two have not yet decided where do they stand amongst each other. Up and around Quarry, and you saw it there. That was millimeters from the wall. And same there. If they're not exchanging paint with the walls, then surely, what on earth is happening there? So razor precise then. That is, you could barely fit a penny between them and the wall. Other fights then going on at the same time, as we saw from before, Davies and Rammensperger, but also Evans and Rammensperger. So a bit of a three-way split here, 2 VSR cars and a Race Club UK McLaren. Taking a look further down the order, Wansi Ampuero looks to be fighting back against Roll Hermsen, having recently lost that position off to the Audi. Down through Skyline. We also have the development here on a possible fight between Dominguez and Rod, but that has quickly dissipated from what was 8 tenths to 1.7. Ben Godden looking to fight with James Burns. It's worth pointing out, Godden's already taken his first of 2 mandatory stops. Burns has taken both of them. And of course, the elephant in the room, the fight for the race lead. Friedman sort of glancing over the shoulder there of Vermaak down in towards turn 23, trying to size up a possible move for the inside, just seeing what its viability is looking like. 0.2 of a second as they cross into lap 10. Out through Hell Corner, traffic now in front. That's one of the Team ARL Mustangs. Taking a look here, Lars Rammensperger is in, undercutting his original strategy by about 10 minutes. Evans stays out. Lige stays out as well. Right now, no suggestion on any new entries to the pit lane, but it is a curious one then for Rammensperger. We'll see for McNally if there's any changes to be expected here. The number 4 stays out. Back on with the leading duo. And I feel like it is really a case here of Sod's Law. The moment we stop paying attention to that leading pair is the moment there's going to be an overtake for them. But having a glance here, it does preside as one of the only remaining battles in this length of the race. Now, there is, of course, still the consideration of Davies and Evans, but they've got traffic in the middle of them, and they are moreover teammates. They're not going to be trying too viciously to attack one another for position. So it's really going to fall to these two here. Being forced to cut there, I think we just saw just before the footage cut away, the 888, now rejoined by the 208, was forced to cut down through Skyline because of traffic in his path. That was Brett Butler in the 450. We do have a yellow flag out. It's the number 5 in trouble. He's now back into the pit lane. As it stands, that is, having a glance in there, that's Roll Hermsen in huge trouble. He's out of this race, so another DNF currently signed off there. That'll be great news for Juan Ciampuero, who will return to 8th place. As it stands then, Race Club UK down another driver. Running wide there into the chase. That is opening doors up here for that 208. Closer and closer, but is it enough for a lunge? Not at this time. With a bit of a skid, though, off the exit of Murray's. This could be it for Will Friedman. Going back up and ahead of Tyler Vermack. Into the lead he goes then on the run down towards turn 1. Number 600 brings out the yellow flags down. Having a glance there at McPhillamy Park. There is trouble down in Sector 2 and 3. With the most recent bit of action then from the front lines, Will Friedman leads for Race Club UK here in Bathurst. Tyler Vermack drops to 2nd. We see, though, he's very swift on the counter-attack, heading in towards Griffin's Bend, right onto the rear bumper of that Mustang. There is still a continuous yellow flag in effect, though, down in the middle and final sector here. We see it's for Brett Winspear of Simplay Motorsports BMW in trouble down at turns 17 and 18. Bouncing from the walls there, likely a case that he's got broken suspension from his incident down at McPhillamy Park. And getting a look back in then, as that situation is still actively developing on the Conrod Straight. There is a caution in effect down in that sector at the moment we see for Vermack. Right onto the rear bumper of Will Friedman. And contact there between the pair of them. Down into turn 18, a bump. There's a difference in braking. Oh, into the wall goes Will Friedman and Tyler Vermack collide again. What on earth is happening with the 2 race leaders? This could be payday for Matthias Claes off the exit of turn 19. Vermack's in sight. Up and ahead goes Matthias Claes. Right behind him is Brett Butler. Disaster for Vermack. He went for a gap that simply couldn't exist. Albeit it didn't really look like he had many options, but that's horrific to see. The 208 continues to lead, but Matthias Claes now moves into 2nd place for McLaren and Simplay Motorsport. Likely the case then that Vermack, yes, into the pit lane now, undercutting his original strategy by about 5 minutes. We see big step out there. And there is damage for the nose of Will Friedman when he went into that wall. That is something to consider here for Matthias Claes. So far, he's the only one among that original top 3 that didn't have any kind of damage. All well and good there. We see in chat from Stefan Nikolai, you know, putting up the quote there from Ayrton Senna: if you no longer go for the gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. Maybe don't go for a gap the size of a moped if you're driving a GT3 car. You know, if this was MotoGP and we were somehow back in Australia for this instead of where we normally go for MotoGP, but yeah, I'd say you could go for it. But if you no longer go for a gap that won't kill you, I would say is maybe the more relevant quote. You see them for Clay settling into that 2nd place spot. Under strategy, he may very well be able to hold on to that for the rest of today's race. This will be great points bringing in then for Simplay. Right now, Race Club UK and Simplay Motorsports lock out the podium with Evans now furthest up the order of VSR. That's been real trouble for them because also they played a very heavy gamble in bringing Rod in on the double points instead of Davies, a driver right now holding a top 5 for Team VSR. And for Vermack, that recent trouble has now forced him wayward of the top 10, as it would appear, now dropping in behind the number 18 Ferrari of David Bacala. Right now, the nearest fight's on track, 1.2 seconds between Davies and Evans. Unlikely, though, there to be a case where these two will be fighting vigorously for position. There's also 1.6 seconds between a wounded Will Friedman, who is into the pit lane and I believe has spun in the pit lane. I only saw the back end of his car there, but I think he did spin. That's been big trouble for Will Friedman, the driver who won in Brands Hatch. Spins in the pit lane and puts even more damage onto his 208. Matthias Claes now leads in Bathurst. Chris Clements moves into second, and Lee Evans moves into third. Chris Davies moves up to fourth. Chris Leish is into the pit lane, so Angeletta about to jump 2 positions, then into the back end of the top 5. A very sudden change in fate for many a driver. For Friedman, this is only going to get worse for him because that's going to bring him ever closer to Vermack, the same driver that he got into that incident with that bumped him in through forests. Claes leads. Clements in second, Evans in third. So 3 different teams now on the podium. Simplay Race Club and Team VSR now in, as it would appear there, to that top 5. Finally confirmed for it is Angeletta. McNally moves up into 6th. And Nick Lamming moves up into 7th place. Here we see in the number 87 Ferrari down through to turn 2. You see for Ramensberger making his way in towards turn 2. Moves up in a 9th place. Will Friedman has been released from the pits. And joins up just in front there of, I believe, having a glance, that is not Juan Cianpueros. That would be Nico Prince for Team ARL, the number 10 Porsche. Looking here, very close gap to be found between Kieran Rodd and Tyler Vermack. Of course, both teammates at Team VSR and both the double point scorers for Team VSR. Amador Dominguez having a very odd line there into turn 23. He was just holding that right-hand side of the track like something had gone wrong there. Clements now into the pit lane. So Evans moves up to second. We'll see if that stands under strategy. Of course, we are starting to see the mass influx to the pit lane for drivers on their first of 2 mandatory pit stops. So clearing off of that first stint for them, knowing that another lap would put them a minute over on strategy. They'd rather afford to be earlier on these sort of things. We've seen that urgency practiced by quite a lot of the field. We see for Angeletta now to 4th as it would stand. As it hangs there right now, Friedman has rejoined in front of Vermack by about 3 seconds. Caught in between them, though, is Nico Prince in the number 10 Team ARL Porsche. So checking in to see with Kieran Rodd, who's right along with Tyler Vermack at this time. It's worth noting on Rodd's performance because he did start from the back of the field and has made his way back up through the order. Now 12th in this session. Number 420 brings out the yellow flags. That is for James Burns. As it happens to be the case there, I believe the 420 was that, I think, was an almost instant DNF there. I think the 420 might be out of this race right there and then. So that's the Honda of James Burns extinguished from this race. Even more trouble, though, the number 8, as it would happen with multiple cars involved. Dominguez out of McPhillamy. That's the same incident we saw for Vermack in qualifying. And it looks, oh, it's too close for comfort there as clipping him. Now being forced down through the emergency exit. This is a horrible place to end up stranded sideways. But fortunately, the number 8 has just enough time there to get back on his feet. Green flags back out. But who was the car that clipped him being the real question? It was one of these Simplay cars. Was that Windspear? I think it might have been. I think he's come off quite lightly there. It doesn't look like any more damages for him. We see in the pit lane is McNally and Lamming. McNally on his way out. Lamming still in the pits at this time. Friedman already having got up and ahead. Same story for Vermack and Rodd. In terms of nearby fights, right now, not much to speak of. There's 2.9 seconds in closing between Vermack and Friedman. There's 2.2 seconds in growing between Rodd and Vermack. Right now, his present company is Nico Prince from behind him. Now into the pit lane goes Matthias Claes. So he held things firm there and outlived the rest of his opponents in the podium. We'll see, though, under strategy, can he hold on to this lead? Well, with Lee Evans staying out to move up into the provisional lead of things for the time being, it's Davies and Angeletta now into the pit lane. It's worth noting here for Angeletta what a turnaround today's performance has been for the 100. Clements next in considerations. Now, he's taken his first pit stop already, so this is exactly what he wants to see in front of him. Multiple cars in their pit box yet to have come out, but it's a very swift exit from the pit lane. Here's the 442, drops off its jacks. It's really not a long distance to grow go, I should say, before you're out of the paddock. Clements, just before turn 1, you can see just having exited there is the 442, and Clements now rounding turn 1. We can see him there, the BMW. Clements has a very good chance here for a podium today with Race Club UK now in the absence of Will Friedman. Evans holds ground then at the forefront of action here. We're past the first 30 minutes of racing. Davies still in the pit lane. Angeletta now having cleared himself of his pit stop. He's on his way out. Davies, as it would appear there, does have damage, so he's going to be in here for a little while longer. Now also joining them from the pit lane, David Bacala of Team ARL. That's in the Elder Ferrari 488, rather than the 458 that we've been seeing so prolifically over the last couple of months. I'd even say over the last couple of years now since its introduction. It basically drove the 488 to extinction. Number 18 struggling to find his pit box there. It's a bit of a confusing one. Lee Evans comes into the pit lane for Nissan. And there is a sort of a chicane on the way in. That's what led to Will Friedman spinning on his run into the pits. Came in way too hot. Now in at a stop there. Lee Evans, who led with Nissan for some time. You see, though, Clace is on the prowl, back up to get into the lead for Simplay Motorsports. And could they wrap out the season with the first of their wins outright in these races? Dwindling numbers then of the Simplay lineup. Only a few drivers entered for this round, so they're likely to lose their third place spot off to Team ARL in today's race, just by nature of less numbers. To round things out to a race win wouldn't be too shabby whatsoever for Simplay, and it certainly wouldn't be something that Matthias Clace would argue with. Down across the line then, Matthias Clace goes back up into the lead here in Bathurst. 56 minutes left to go. Clements up to second. Rammensperger looking at a podium. A podium, if we can say a word with more than 3 syllables, or more than 2. Leish looking at a possible 4th place here, but Evans now off of his jacks. We see right along with him there was David Bacala. Evans, very swift exit from the pits there, joins in behind that of Lars Rammensperger, so makes a top 5 for the top 5 for the time being, I should say. Chris Leish then remains in 5th place. Will Friedman in 6th, Vermax 7th, Rod 8th, Wright 9th, behind him Angeletta. This could be the next fight in consideration here. Angeletta versus Wright. We saw Wright not too long ago claim on his 2nd victory in the World Series by Competizione Performance League. So let's get a catch on board here with the Lamborghini. In his current exploits out on track, he's 3/10 in the lead over Angeletta for 9th place. You see that for Angeletta, he got very sharp onto the brakes and the back end started to come away from him there. He had to grab the car, make sure it didn't go into the wall. Now on his way up through Quarry. I'll try to go and catch on board here with Angeletta's perspective, as it's always interesting to watch from the trailing car of 2. On now with the number 100. Up in front of him there, right, in the number 540, Team ARL Lamborghini in 9th place on this grid at the moment. You see, though, up in front of him, catching a significant part of the grass there, was Wright, kicking up a huge plume of dust in his eyes. Down towards the chase. We do have a white flag in progress down there. That's for Nico Prince, who has now since cleared off the exit of turn 22. I believe there was an off-track incident just up in front, but not enough to raise the yellow flags right away. Down towards turn 23. Still contending 9th place then by half a second. Angeletta versus Wright. One of a number of fights growing on this grid at this time, as we see the gap between Leish, Friedman and Evans is starting to slow down. It's starting to go south of 1.6 seconds between these 3 at this time. 1.2 seconds and closing Davies to Lamming for 12th place. And of course, as we've seen, one of the closest fights on track at the moment is between these two. Angeletta versus Wright. As they make their way uphill, it's got a lot closer since. So we see the run up towards turn 2. It's worth noting for Friedman v. Leish, now 1.3 seconds and closing. So he is on the hunt here for that top 5. But he's going to have to try and get out past one of his own teammates. Following back on board then at the top of the hill with these two. Angeletta versus Wright for 9th place. You see up in towards McPhillamy Park. Down through the skyline. So far, so good for these two. Down in towards the Dipper. Further through the S's in towards Forest Selbo. Now, this section can catch you out if you try and turn too much under braking. That's why we see a lot of straight braking lines down through the turn 18 because of that crest coming into the corner. If you try and turn too hard whilst braking over a crest, the back end will go light and the car will pivot around. We've seen it plenty of times before. Angeletta giving Wright the lights here. Knows he's got him on straight line speed. Looking for a possible move on the inside down at the chase. He's right up to the rear bumper of the Lamborghini down at turn 20 and 21. Now through turn 22. Heading up to Murray's turn 23. Still looking for a way on the inside, but it's just too narrow a gap to clear. So it may be up to the case of having a better exit like we saw for Will Friedman's overtake on Tyler Vermack not too long ago. Antonio Angeletta nearly front to rear quarter there with a 540. Side by side on the run in towards turn 1. Backs out of it. Wright has the very slightly better exit of the two, giving a bit of distance there in the first half of the mountain straight. And now as we get up over the crest, we see Wright onto his rear bumper now. Is Angeletta. Was that moment of hesitance just a little too much for him, though? To go for the inside? Yes, it was, because he couldn't find any ground of it and ended up just stunting his own line. Down through to turns 3 and 4 here at the cuttings, going for the wider entry line to a much sharper exit line. You can see how much more momentum he was able to carry, but because he has the Lamborghini parked up over his nose, he can't do anything with it, so has to back off. Out through Quarry. Now through Reed, into Solman. Out past the wall of death here. Through to McPhillamy Park. Turn 10 into turn 11 we go, down to Skyline. These two have had an enthralling fight here from the back end of the top 10 at the moment. And following on to see where the other fights may be occurring, we do have one 8/10ths apart here between Friedman and Evans, as now he's got up past Leish. Vermack's off in the distance by about 4 seconds. We do see this fight now going on for 4th. Evans tries to hold his ground. This might be one to catch on with here amongst our current fight between these two. 3/10ths apart between Angeletta and Wright on the Conrod straight, but as it stands, Wright has the advantage. Looking here for Will Friedman versus Lee Evans in the current scope of 4th place. Down through turn 1. We do just get... What's it? Wins there of... I think it was a car up on the grass. I think the number 8 was just momentarily on the grass. That was for Dominguez. As we heard the engine go light on him there. Down through turn 2, or I suppose more relevantly up through turn 2 as we head up to the cuttings, turns 3 and 4. And the fight currently for 4th place. Friedman in hot pursuit then of Lee Evans of Team VSR. Meanwhile, an update then from the fight between Antonio Angeletta and Wright. Between VSR and ARL for 9th place. This is a fight that's been going on for some time between these two as they make their way up the mountain straight, looking for the inside at Griffins here. Not yet committing fully to the send. Back on with these two at the top of the hill, down through Skyline now as we begin the run back down it. In towards the Dipper. Heading up towards Forest Selbo. This is where Friedman could start to lodge an attack here for 4th place off of Lee Evans. You've got to consider the Ford has an engine restrictor, the Nissan doesn't, and the Nissan is no slouch. But in the slipstream, the Ford will still be able to stay with. Well, it might not have the engine power for it. They haven't nerfed the transmission, so it still has the final drive capable. Heading down through to the chase. The 208 still firmly in behind there, the 444, but Evans holds centre mass of the road into the chase to stave off an advantage there by the 208. Checking in with Angeletta and Wright down through the same section we just saw before, out through Forests. Now into turn 19 onto the Conrod. We can see there, great exit for the Lamborghini, now putting a fair distance up over the Mustang. Knowing this is a much more night and day comparison between the two. Checking back into Nissan and Ford up in the top 5. Our two key fights of today then, as we head in towards the next half of the race, coming up in about 2 minutes, then the halfway mark of today's round. Looking to go side by side, but bear in mind he's to the outside. It's a big gamble for him, but if he can hold his ground from the outside, he'll have the inside into the cuttings, which is a far easier move to make. Up through the Griffins, falls back in behind, but as we see there, the makings of a switchback, but it still puts Nissan to the advantage. So far has been very solid defense here by Lee Evans to hold 4th place off of Will Friedman, who has had quite a unique race so far. Looking back in, Angeletta versus Wright, onto the mountain straight here, just off of turn 1. These two have been inseparable amongst that top 10 at the moment. This is for 9th place between these two. And these represent two of our closest fights of the grid right now, is for 9th and 4th. Off the exit of turn 2, great exit by the Ford, but the Lamborghini's got the inside into the cuttings. So who yields first being the real question. Late onto the brakes there to try and hold his ground, but now forced back in behind the Lamborghini goes Antonio Angeletta in towards Quarry. Looking at a possible round the outside, but he needs to back out of that one quick, just of how quickly that narrows up, and a big contact there with the wall for Wright. The 540 in trouble, but does regain his footing there. It's not a be-all and end-all, but it's not a great turn for things for Wright, but he has done quite well to hold himself from ping-ponging off those walls, which we have seen happen in the past, and it is brutal when it does. But there spells the end of the fight between these two, now catching on board with Evans v Friedman. This is going to be an exciting one to watch here. We see with Will Friedman right onto the rear bumper of Lee Evans. You see they're trying to spook him, trying to force him to defend early, knowing no one in their right mind's going for a turn 23 lunge. You'd have to be basically parked on his rear quarter to make that move stick. So Evans is no fool in being so easily goaded into defense. Now turn 2 on the other hand, I'd say you definitely got a chance. We'll see right off the bat there, already teetering over to the right-hand side of the road. He's making it as small and as awkward a gap as possible to even suggest a move for that inside. Good area denial practiced then by the Nissan. And he sticks to that line, doesn't try to move too much under braking. And Friedman so far has been staved off of a chance to be on the second row by this one in front of him, the 444 of Lee Evans. See in the pit lane, Nico Prince and Amador Dominguez.
We are halfway through, not over yet.
Looking to go and catch on board with the Nissan here of Evans, who has had a formidable defense of 4th. As we make our way up towards McPhillamy Park. For Stefan in chat, yes, Lee Evans is VSR Grizz. Oh, he's had a big step out there at the dipper. You can see actually on the third-person camera, the nose of the Mustang was creeping into shot there. That's how close the 208 is. Giving him the lights. He wants him out of the way. Evans won't budge for anyone. That seems to be pretty clear here in Bathurst. Down onto the Conrod straight we go. Up over the crest into the run at the chase. It turns 20 through 22. It's going to have to be a wing and a prayer here for the 208 to take position away from Lee Evans, because he's holding the inside for the run in towards the chase. Holding that inside, but he steps out there. Will Friedman's got the chance. Evans now holding the inside for the run to Murray's. We see there Friedman switches it back. Dare I say it, he's going for the move on the inside. Down at turn 23. Elbows firmly out and the gloves off with them. Will Friedman up to 4th, and Evans is furious. Chris Leish now has the chance here with this fight now advancing to a fight for 5th for Evans, if not a counter-attack for 4th, as a third car steps into frame. Chris Leish in the 74 Mustang. Behind them, there's Tyler Vermack. Right now for Evans, his priority is starting to shift. Of course, he wants to get back up there with Friedman, but having made very quick distance, he might have to start prioritizing defense for the top 5 with Leish in his rearview mirror. As I say that, it was a pretty decent send there through Griffins. There is the chance he can make distance back up against Will Friedman, but he's had a bit of a wobble there, and there goes Chris Leish, but he collides with the wall just as he gets up past Evans. That's been a tough one for Lee Evans. A few stutters here and there. First at the chase, and then up through the cuttings. And he's dropped 2 positions to two Race Club UK forwards. And we see there the back end came light for Evans. So now this is a matter of survival for him down at McPhillamy. He lets Tyler Vermack on through. He's spent. And the 444 maybe into the pits early to replace those tyres. Going to check in then with any new emerging fights. We see in the case here that the 2 Race Club UK Fords may have to face off against now that of Tyler Vermack in the 888 behind. We see here with Leish now up into that top 5. Is going to be first in the iron sights of the South African talent behind him in 6th place. On the Conrad, 1.6 seconds the current margin for the Fords to the McLaren in behind him. You can see very quickly advancing. We see riding the curbs there. Leish has a little bit of a wobble out through the chase, and that's enough to drop 0.2 between himself and Vermack. Down through to turn 23. So having a glance at it here as we get up towards the end of this second stint of racing. Matthias Claes leads for Simplay Motorsports. Chris Clements in second with Lars Rammensperger in third. Will Friedman in fourth and Chris Leish in fifth. We see Tyler Vermack behind them in 6th with Lee Evans now down to 7th. Kieran Rodd up to 8th from the back of the field. And Antonio Angeletta in 9th. Right round out the top 10 for Team ARL with McNally in 11th. Davies in 12th. Lamming in 13th. Butler in 14th. And Puero 15th. Bacala in 16th. McMillan in 17th. Godden in 18th. Winspear in 19th. Dominguez in 20th. And Prince in 21st. Multiple DNFs in this race. Looking in here with Chris Leish. Now fending off the last of the top 5s here. He's the checkpoint. The be-all and end-all to try and defend a multi-finish position here for Race Club UK. 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th. They'll be trying to gun for a 1, 2, 3, 4, but they've got to try and get past that of Claes with Simplay Motorsports. They've got to try and catch him on strategy. We see here a bit of a wobble here and there for Chris Leish on his way downhill. We see now descending upon him in this upcoming fight for 5th is Tyler Vermack going for it on the inside, very nearly off the exit of the Forest's elbow. Now out through turn 19, that McLaren is descended upon him there. And in his side draft, it's going to stay right along with Chris Leish in his number 74 Ford up over the crest here on the Conrad Straight. 1.9 kilometers between ourselves at turn 19 and the run of things at turn 20, which we see coming up here side by side between Leish and Vermack. In towards the chase we go. Vermack later onto the brakes. Leish, as it would seem then, beat under the brakes by the McLaren. Now going up into 5th. .39 left to go. Will Friedman having put ample distance up over Tyler Vermack. These two got into an incident earlier on today, which is what's kept them from the race lead ever since. 39.5 minutes left to go. Having a look around the field then to see where the nearest fights might be coming from. Right now, the chances for a counter-attack by Leish is relatively low, given the fact that he's had quite a few wobbles there on that Ford. And by the looks of things, trying to drag the tyres out into the next stint here, 8 minutes before his expected pit stop. Friedman now 4.4 seconds in range for Tyler Vermack. Scorned by that incident at turns 18 and 19. He's not going to forget that one in a hurry. Up through to Solman and McPhillamy. Down at turns 9 and 10. Through to Skyline then at turns 11 and 12. And a fun fact about the Mount Panorama circuit is when they're not using it for racing, you can actually drive around this circuit. It's a publicly accessible road, which makes this a street circuit. Technically. Now, I've had my own choice opinions on street circuits in the past, but I think I can make a very clear case that this is a cut above the rest of them. You'd not have convinced me originally this was public road if it weren't for the markings in the middle. However, if you do ever plan on going to the town of Bathurst and want to drive on the Mount Panorama circuit when it's not race day or not race time, and you want to use it as a public road, don't be expecting to get up to any kind of top-end speed here because you'll be limited to 37 miles an hour. And they are very strict about that. They have the police, the Bathurst police, that patrol the area. You see the possibility of a fight here, or say big quotations fight, between Evans and Rod, 1.4 seconds apart. The reason I say that is because you don't often get to see in this event the teammates going head to head here for position. They often work collaboratively, which is the whole essence of this championship here. It's what's led to Race Club UK's dominant success in this series, leading with nearly double the points of VSR. See for Lai, she has been able to stay with Vermaak for a decent amount of time here, but down through to McPhillamy. There is traffic in front. Brett Winspear, as it would happen there, with Simplay BMW. And when Vermaak was able to get up past him just before the run into Skyline Hill, Leish runs into him at a very tough time here down through the S's. Such is the case here for the lap traffic. I'd say personally, yeah, you've just got to get all the way through that sector there before you even consider pulling over. Anything else is suicide. We've seen a few occasions where, especially newer drivers, they get up onto the grids and they're showing the blue flags in this track and they just dive for either of the walls. You can barely fit two cars abreast down through any of these corners in that middle, and then coming up into this last sector here, it's not particularly easy. I'd say leave it to the straights to get out of the way. As we've actually seen quite a few major incidents happen before at Bathurst in a few different championships when drivers have leapt from the racing line suddenly in an area that's far too tight to accompany two drivers side by side. Clements now into the pit lane, so recent developments there from the top five. Chris Clements into the pits, was previously second before he came in. No word then from Matthias Claes, as it would appear going for a much more stereotypical strategy today, then give it up probably about 5 minutes before he's back into the pit lane if he's going for a dead-on 30-30-30. Ramensberger stays out, moves up to second. Friedman goes up into third. And it makes you wonder how much assistance is he going to be getting here from Ramensberger. Of course, Race Club UK nominated him as their double point scorer. So they're probably going to try and do everything in their power to get him as high up through the order as they can. Vermaak moves up to fourth, Leish to fifth. Evans to sixth, Rod to seventh, and so on and so forth. McNally into the pit lane with damage, as it would appear in the number 4 Nissan. We have a glance here to see was momentarily the scope of a half-second gap between Godden and McMillan, but it seems the case there that the ARL car has either fell massively in behind or moved out of the way for the arrival of the 95. We see here for Ramensberger and Friedman, these two very close to one another. Would there be the likelihood of a swap for position? Well, it doesn't seem to be the case that Ramensberger is going to fight Friedman as they go side by side, now transferring very close to one another. So that's tactical from Race Club UK. They want to put their best forward on this one. Ramensberger playing the team game, letting Friedman out in front. We'll see, though, what changes for them as they pass by the pit lane. So they're not coming in. Neither is Claes. We'll see for Vermaak. Neither the case there for him. But Leish, he did float the idea and now is in. So Chris Leish into the pit lane in the number 74. The 444 staying out. Same story for the 61. I must comment there on what a performance it's been for Kieran Rodd. Started from the back, 24th on this grid, now 7th. And that'll be 6th as he crosses the line here with 33 minutes left to go. I'd say if there's any more antics up in front, there's high chance he could see a top 5 by the end of this race. It's a bit of a stretch here, but I wouldn't rule it out. Given just how quickly a situation can devolve here in Bathurst, I would definitely put it on the cards that something could go wrong up in the rows ahead. Another gap to comment on here. Two Team ARL cars close to one another, Ampuero and Butler. 1.2 seconds. Much in the same stead as we've seen there for Rammensperger and Friedman, and now Evans and Rodd. It's unlikely they'll be clashing heads for position anytime soon. Out through turn 61, a bit of a rattle there off the exit of McPhillamy, but in towards Skyline. See how quickly Rodd is able to make position up here on Evans, clawing the time back. He had previously lost in the few corners beforehand. Clements now out of his pit box on his way to the exit of the pit road. As it would happen here, he looks to be emerging ahead of Juancy Ampuero, so moving to 11th as it stands for Clements. .9 of a second here as Evans starts to navigate traffic out in front of him. One of the Simplay BMWs he's come up upon there. I believe that's Brett Winspear in the number 600. Yes, it is. Down through the chase, right onto the front bumper there of the 61. Ushered out of the way just off the exit of turn 22. Rammensperger now into the pit lane. So for Max, going to shift up to the podium. And he's got clear line of sight there on Will Friedman. That's a frightening thing to see for either party. Meeting again after their fated incident down at turn 18 and 19. There is still the wider context of the rest of that field. Plenty of drivers still with one more pit stop to serve. And coming up then is going to be that next major window that we predict where a lot of drivers will be coming in. New strategy, or perhaps new fight here found for Chris Davies. Question is, though, coming up into that 30-minute mark, will he be holding out to try and fight with this one here, knowing Leish is in a different world to him on this race? He's going to stay out regardless. See, though, for Lamming, if he's next in line on considerations to the pit lane, a bit of a scrape there off the exit of the chase right behind him then. Looks to be the number 10, so that is, yeah, that's Nico Prince with Team ARL. I've got to say, it's a bit of a gutter, really, that Prince had that early doors incident, because he has displayed pretty solid pace throughout. It was just that incident down at the cuttings has set him so far down the mark there, 5 laps. There's just not a great deal he can do. Rodd and Evans still very close to one another. Davies still staying with not Rammensperger, sorry, Leish. As Rammensperger's off by his lonesome. Matthias Claes stays out. What's the call here for Will Friedman? 29.5 minutes left to go. He certainly thought about it for a second there. He did edge over towards the left-hand side of the road. Vermack, though, is going into the pits, attempting an undercut strategy on Friedman. We'll see, do either of these two consider the pit lane? No, not this time around. Next in line would be Angeletta at this time. Actually, as I say that, Brett Winspear is now into the pit lane for Simplay Motorsports in 19th. We see there, now being allowed on through by Evans, is Kieran Rodd. See, joining us in chat there, 5-star Jupiter Now, we did comment on this in a few broadcasts ago today, but it was the case. We do wish the best of luck over to the Euro Titans and 5-star teams currently participating in the 24 Hours of Daytona. I'm told that that was eventful. I've seen the clips. It's an interesting one. Bless them, they're doing what they can, though, I imagine, over at Race Control. That's not an easy thing to deal with, because, ooh, yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, perhaps that's for the better. But down through McPhillamy, we see here now, after their recent transfer, Rod into third, Evans currently fourth, and Gilletta in fifth, as for Mack went into the pits. With all due respect here, Davies has done very well to hold on to Leish. Despite a difference in strategy, that would have been new tyres as well for Chris Leish. So Davies holding on. He's really put experience to the test here. Of course, two-time VSR champion. And was nominated originally as one of their double point scorers, and now that's been turned over to Kieran Rod. You can see that there was certainly a gamble, but they're about to hit the jackpot, as it would appear, with Rod currently third. Now, there's still the high chance you'll see a top 5 by the end of this race. He's going to have to hammer down in the next 27.5 minutes. Friedman is in, so this is likely what the strategy was the whole time, but it is worth commenting. That comes only a lap later than for Mack's run into the pit, so it is possibly reactionary. If not, then that it's just a very well lined up strategy, but we'll see how it plays out. Friedman's in at his stop. Vermack's on the exit of Forest's Elbow. Oh, yeah, no, I've just seen that in chat. Ew, that's not looking good. I think it was a very ambitious idea they brought to the table, but I don't think they were ready for the kind of people that enter these tournaments. It can get really nasty out there on iRacing. Oh, as you see here for Vermack, a bit of a wobble for him off the exit of the chase, and now on his way out is Will Friedman. So, oh, hang on just a moment. Look at there in the pit lane. Oh my God, what happened to Nick Lamming? I didn't see that. What happened to him? Oh, goodness. Friedman is out. As it would happen then, Vermack is still in behind. So Friedman has played a wonderful strategy in today's race. And now we also see that Chris Davies and Chris Leish in. Oh my goodness, there we can see as well for Leish damage. We saw from Lamming was a mangled Ferrari. We see a mauled Ford making its way in. We see there from Stefan in chat. Will you be broadcasting LMU when it comes out to console, or are you moving to PC? Well, we've hybridized is what we've done. We've already been covering LMU races from the folks over at MSC. We have plans to do that again for the Wednesday evening slot after next week. So we will be doing more LMU stuff. But when it comes to console, oh, absolutely. Yeah, don't even get it twisted. We will 100% be on that. We've been waiting for this one because we know there's a huge market wave coming up for LMU when it comes to console, because we know it will. And right now, ACC, I've had my mixed opinions of this game. I really have. And having obviously owed this game to the entirety of my career as a commentator, as well, it did technically start on EAF1, but really where we got our footing on TRTM was right here on ACC. We do owe that much to this game. But I think people are bored. They're bored with what they have. And this is the top level for console players. For those who don't want to fork out 4 figures on a PC, this is as high as it gets. It's either that or Gran Turismo, if you're over on PlayStation. But even then, they have ACC, so there's not much the excuse. This is, I would say, the top level for console sim racing esports. And it can go quite a long way. We've seen a lot of paid championships. We've even worked with paid championships over on the XTL Pro Series, which you can catch on our YouTube channel. That was great working with those guys as well, really getting to see the top level of what console esports is looking like here for sim racing. And I get the impression everyone who's at that top level, every league, every organizer, every team, every driver is waiting now for LMU, because that's what they want. They want what iRacing has without paying so much money to have it. They don't want to spend 4 figures on a PC. They don't want to have to upgrade their rig to be complacent to PC and get all of the firmware and software installed and do all of that fettling. They want to plug and play because they drive. They don't code. They don't program. They don't set up. They drive. They're drivers. They want to drive. So I, for one, cannot wait for LMU to come out, because to see more variety, to see more options, that's what's going to keep this side of the community very happy and fed. In the meantime, then, we see into the pit lane goes Matthias Claes in the number 442 Simplay McLaren. He's had a phenomenal race here in Bathurst. It is going to be very curious to see where it goes next for him. Kieran Rodd then currently second place, with Lee Evans in third and Antonio Angeletta in fourth. VSR at least trying to put one of their drivers here amongst that top five. It's been a very tough one to go toe-to-toe with Race Club UK on this one. They've dominated this championship by numbers and by results in more recent weeks. And we saw that first win for Race Club UK outright in a race by this driver here, Will Friedman. One of the mainstay drivers we've seen over on the exclusive esports team. Quite the talent in his own respect there. And this is much a case of bringing a shotgun to a knife fight. Is deploying Friedman into this championship. And that's no disrespect to any of the other drivers, but this one, he's a scary one to go toe-to-toe with. But I really do think today that Claes has him. 22.5 minutes left to go. And Simplay are within a chance here to emerge from the shadow of VSR and Race Club UK to put their names on the top of the charts and get a race-winning driver in the form of Matthias Claes. And it really did seem to be the case throughout today's race. When you had Friedman and Vermaak on the front row, it was inevitable what was going to come next from them. I really did think, and I didn't want to say it at the time because we know these drivers quite well. We've seen these drivers in many different championships. We know the kind of drivers that they are. But you throw two drivers that are nearly identical for their prowess on this track in the same arena, and you tell them that they're not on the same team, they're going to rip each other apart until there's nothing left to be recovered. And that's exactly what happened today. Up and around Quarry. We mentioned this in parting before, but this is probably the most frightening form we get from Will Friedman is if he's been knocked down, because he just picks up into this relentless pursuit like a Terminator. He's a terrifying driver to watch, because once you actually kick him down, that's when he just unlocks 1.5 to 2 times the amount of pace he brought to the table in qualifying. Because we've seen, and I can name quite a few of them, multiple instances where he's been kicked down, clawed his way back through the field, and turned it into a top 10, a top 5, or even a podium. And I know very few drivers that can do that so consistently, which is why we regard him so highly. I will point this out here, the tacticianry from Matthias Claes. He's played the thinking man's game, and with Rodd and Evans now in the pit lane, he's back up into the lead by 20 minutes left to go in this race. New fight emerging here, as we do see from Wright and McNally the next in consideration on fighting between the 540 and the 4 as they make their way through to the cuttings. Do see a bit of a wobble though there for the number 4. We've seen somewhat of a bit of whiplash here from a lot of the VSR drivers that we are now seeing driving with Mercedes over on the VSR GT3 Championship. So such has been the case here for both Evans and for McNally. There has been a little bit of teething issues getting back into the car they spent the season beforehand with. So while no means is it awkward and no means are they, you know, finding their first steps all over again, it is just a noticeable case here when you consider how the Nissan is to set up and how the Mercedes is to set up. It is worlds apart. You're working with broadly different technology there, and the cars end up with broadly different results therein. Yeah, but back onto that conversation real quick about Le Mans Ultimate when it comes to console. I'm very much so looking forward to it because our latest project coming up with MSC. Oh my goodness. Did you see the slide there from Vermaak? My goodness. Out through McPhillamy. Full Sterling Moss. There was slip angle involved there and everything. You see a bit of a knock there down at the dipper. Well, our latest project coming up with MSC is finally going to give us the opportunity to talk about the hypercars. We have been wanting to do this for years now. Since we knew that this was an opportunity, since we knew that this could eventually be something we do, we've been wanting to commentate about the hypercars for a long time. When it comes to LMU coming to console, that conversation will only get richer because we have the Genesis, we have the Valkyrie, We have the Peugeots, we have the Alpines, we have all of the WEC stuff instead of right now what would have been the other option, which would have been iRacing, which was most of the IMSA content with the sprinklings there of the Ferrari. Now, you know, again, it's sort of a case where, oh, my steak's too juicy, my lobster's too buttery, but having the full roster of WEC hypercars, where the category itself was sort of birthed from, I'm very, very curious and very excited to be able to cover more of that in the near future. In terms of this series, it's been fantastic to see these leagues go head-to-head. The leagues that we've worked with before and drivers that we have met from other leagues. So we've worked extensively with VSR. That's how we were brought in on this project to begin with. We were contacted by the folks over at Race Club UK for something of this variety. We've seen the work of a few of the Race Club UK drivers, quite a lot of the VSR drivers, a few of the Team ARL drivers, such as the cases we see for drivers like Wright in the Lamborghini, the number 540. We just saw him only a few hours ago take a race win in the Hungaroring over on the Competizione Performance League World Series. And we've also seen quite a bit of the Simplay team when we did work with the folks over at XCL. So seeing all of these leagues come together and fight under the same banner has been really quite a fantastic thing to see. And it has given us some very exciting races. I mean, looking back through the history of it, Brands Hatch was a great race as well when we got to see the first of those race wins proceed out for Will Friedman. That was a great run of things. Brands Hatch is always an exciting circuit to see, and Bathurst today has been a fantastic one as well. And of course, all of this has been for a fantastic cause. I've been very happy to get behind a project like this. I think it's for a very valuable cause. And so far, they're 80% through of the way to a £1,000 donation goal from 36 generous supporters at this time. That's all for the Shooting Star Children's Hospice charity. And I think this has been a wonderful event to get behind and to see all of these leagues compete and to see all of these drivers really, and they didn't play around here. They are hammering each other on these tracks. So it really gets some proper white knuckle racing for some GT level stuff. It's almost reminding me at the moment of the N24, how that style of racing ends up playing out. Which, by the way, the N24 is on at the moment, in case you didn't know. We spoke about it earlier when we were ourselves at the Nürburgring over with HCCL earlier on today. If you're watching in now, it won't make any sense. If you're watching on, like, YouTube, it's not going to make any sense. 16 minutes left to go then. Up through the cuttings, we see for Matthias Claes, who leads the charge here for Simplay Motorsports. Now, recent considerations of a newfound fight once again, Wright versus McNally for 10th. So we're going to go and catch on board with the Nissan. You see here from Leish, now way down the order to 16th. Scrolling through then to locate the Nissan of Sean McNally. In the recent times then down through Skyline has lost a lot of ground there off to Wright. Now 1.5 seconds between the pair of them. We go to catch on board here with Evans. There's a fair distance at the moment from either Rod or Clements at this time. We mentioned it earlier that the Mustang was a relatively native car to this track because of its use in both Gen 2 and Gen 3 regulations of the Supercars Championship. But back when it was the Australian Touring Cars Championship, the Nissan Skyline had a prominent place on the grid during the Group A era of the 1990s. The R32 later became known as Godzilla for its dominant performance in the 1990s era of the Australian Touring Car Championship, where it used to clear house as one of a very rare number of cars to feature an all-wheel drive system. And that surviving competitive nature exists here in the R35. It's almost a pity then that Nissan has stopped making the GTR in favour of bringing back the standard Skyline, but we still don't know enough about that car. We've seen some of the press images. We don't have a full body shot of the car just yet. We don't know what it's going to look like, but I am rather excited to see where they take that. With their developments at Nismo, very likely we'll be seeing a racing model in the near future. Of course, with recent pressure from their rivals over at Toyota, it's certainly a possibility that that new Skyline will make its way into Super GT, where the current 400Z is. $14 minutes then left to go in this race right now, and taking a look at the order once again, Matthias Claes leads over Will Friedman in second, with Lars Rammensperger in third, Tyler Vermack in fourth, and Kieran Rod into the top 5. So we saw the predictions there, and now it becomes manifest for him into that top 5. Started 24th on this grid. What a drive it's been for Rod. Even if he isn't walking away with a podium or even a chance of a win, that's an easy driver of the day, in our opinion. Oh my God, you see up in front there? That was David Bacala, the number 18, the Ferrari 488. Well, yeah, doing his best impression of a low rider there with the hydraulics on the back end, but caught a big chunk of grass there, and the back end just kept bouncing from him. He's done very well to keep that from spinning, because that would normally take most drivers to the wall. 13 minutes left to go then. So looking further down through the order, Lee Evans in 6th with Chris Clements in 7th, Antonio Angeletta in 8th with Chris Davies in 9th. We see here Wright rounds out the top 10, McNally in 11th with Butler in 12th, and Puero 13th, McMillan in 14th, Godden in 15th, Leish in 16th, Bacala in 17th, Winspear in 18th, Lamming in 19th, and Prince rounds out the remaining 20 cars on this grid. Started with 25 cars, so 5 DNFs so far in this race, as we get closer and closer to the last 10 minutes of racing. Right now, I'd say we've got about the scope here of about 6 more laps before this round, and by proxy, the championship is out. You see then from Clace still in the lead here. In terms of developing fights, of course, there has been the wider consideration here of Nissan versus Lamborghini for some time. McNally now starting to reel back into Wright for the last of those top 10 positions. Huracan versus GTR as they mount the crest in towards Skyline. You see there, that was near enough nothing against him in the wall. That was almost gliding the edge of the car along the wall there off the exit of the Forest's Elbow. We see at the moment for McNally, still in pursuit here of Wright. As it happens right now, about just a second there, as it would appear, between himself and the Lamborghini. Through to the chase we go. There is definitely the chances for these two to continue to fight to the checkered flag here in round 4. Ten minutes then left to go here in Bathurst. I'll leave you on board here with Wright and McNally's upcoming then fight for 10th place, and we'll be back to you in just a moment's time. We continue to see here with Wright versus McNally. 1.2 seconds, the current dividing margin on their fight for 10th. Taking a look again wider to the rest of the order to see where nearby fights may be coming from. This is currently the closest among them, as it would happen, between the number 4 and the number 540. Eight minutes left to go then. As it stands from the point of view of Matthias Claes, we are in the ballpark of about, looking here, possibly about 4, maybe 5 laps left to go. Having started lap 39 not too long ago then, on his way out through the cuttings into Quarry. Simplay looking at their first win at the last round. Another developing gap then, as it happens here. 1.5 seconds between Vermaak and Ramensperger. With time dwindling down, there is still the chances for these fights to explode into side-by-side movement, but it is still up in the air, especially considering in the case of Vermaak v Ramensperger, that's come up now 3/10 from 1.5 to 1.8. And we see in the case here of McNally and Wright that has quickly devolved after an incident down at turn 18 where he's had a bit of oversteer and has lost a lot of time. Now on his way down the Conrod. That has dropped from what was 1.2 to now 2.9, so absolutely nuked the gap between these two. So it may be worth going to catch on board here with Lars Ramensperger and Tyler Vermaak in what could be an upcoming fight in and amongst the podium positions here. Going to catch on board then with the McLaren of Lars Ramensperger, if we can at least. And with the 51, as you can see, Vermaak is now descending upon him. So on board here with Lars Ramensperger from Race Club UK. What has now become the fight for third place for him as he makes his way down the Conrod. Lingering over the crest there, the 888 of Team VSR's Tyler Vermaak. Six minutes left to go, but a bit of a wobble there for Vermaak down at the chase. He senses blood in the water, but he can't get too enthusiastic here, knowing that time is growing very, very short for him. 6 minutes left to go in this race. We could very well be in with only about 3, maybe even 2 laps left to go, as currently about a quarter of the way through his next one here on lap 40 has been the race lead of Matthias Claes for Simplay Motorsport. Heading up then through to the cuttings. Ramensperger holds ground here. 1.6 seconds clear from Tyler Vermaak. 5 minutes left to go in this race. 4:42 as it would appear. May have maybe, I want to say about 2, maybe 3 more laps before the end of this race. With that third lap really falling in on a very heavy overhang into that last minute. Ramensperger's done well here to hold ground from Vermaak. 1.2 seconds. This is his fastest section here. So this is something that he really is going to have to try and keep Vermaak at bay from. Because you can see how quickly he claws that time back in, down through the S's. That's going to claw just underneath 1 second. He has that section of the track almost perfect. That's what brings him so close to him onto the run of the Conrod. Now for Vermaak, what he'd need to do in these next couple of laps, he needs to try and stay even closer in that first sector so that by the time he gets to the run down through Skyline, he'll be parked almost on the rear bumper of Ramensperger. Then in the slipstream, a move for the inside can easily be made then for him. Thing is now, with the tyres acting the way that they are, and it's definitely a case here where he has ragged those Pirellis way out of line. 888, we've seen a few stabs of oversteer there. He's not only wrestling with the concept of trying to catch up to Lars Ramensperger, but wrestling with the machine he's driving. You see in the last lap, he was still faster, but is not gaining significant wads of ground in a short enough time here. We've only got under 4 minutes of racing left to go. We're on for 2 more laps here in Bathurst. And taking a look once again out to the wider monitor here to see if there are any other fights going on at this time. So no, we're going to continue to laser in then on this fight for third for Ramensberger v Vermaak up through Quarry. Down through Skyline, you can see just how quickly the Triple Eight is getting onto him now through the Dipper. Watching over the rear view then of Lars Ramensberger in through the S's down towards Forest's elbow. We'll see just how late onto the brakes there Vermaak can go. He's much closer than he was in the last lap, 4 tenths. But Ramensberger, by staying on the normal line there, has a much better exit off of Forest's elbow. And that sort of acts as a sort of a springboard for him to just launch down the Conrod. And as it stands there, Vermaak's bleeding ground away. It's from 0.4 to 0.6 of a second before we even get down to turn 20. Triple Eight, a little bit of a slide there. We do just have word of a yellow flag. It's the number 100 in trouble. As it would happen down at, looking here, I think this is McPhillamy we're seeing from the number 100. So that is for Antonio Angeletta. No, it isn't. It's at Solman. It's a Reed Park into Solman, as it would appear there. Big trouble for Antonio Angeletta. Heavy front-end damages there for that Mustang. As he makes his way now through McPhillamy Park. And it clearly seems to be the case there that he has lost also the sort of structural integrity of that steering system. As we are very much still in yellow flags, but going back out to see here in Sector 1. Vermaak right on top now of Ramensberger for their fight of third. So back on board with the 51, leading this fight for third place away from Tyler Vermaak. Up through to McPhillamy Park. We see on the run in towards Skyline. Look at how close the Triple Eight is now to the 51. He's forced onto the exit there on the emergency runoff in towards the Dipper. As we close in on what is going to be the final lap of racing not too long from now. The 442 is only a few corners away from starting. One more lap here. And these two are right on top of each other for the last of those podium positions in towards Forest. Now out through Forest Elbow. Now into turn 19 onto the Conrod. Much closer now than he was in the last couple of laps. This will be enough, I believe, to bring him back into the slipstream. You can start to see he's losing ground, so I think it's a case where Ramensberger is running a lower aero setup. The car's just got a little bit more in the top end, and it's holding him at arm's length. Number 100 up in front, still with troubles there, so it's a yellow flag for these two, rolling up into the chase. In front of them there, trouble from Angeletta. You can see stranded at the right-hand side of the road as they continue their fight into the last lap of racing here in Bathurst. Out through turn 23. It's worth noting that was the same slip-up from Vermaak that gave Friedman the opportunity to go for the inside. And that Vermaak takes with great opportunity then out through turn 1. A little bit of a runoff there off of Hell Corner. A bit of a bump between the two McLarens. They go up through the mountain straight, and now up and ahead into third goes Vermaak. Ramensberger right on his rear bumper, looking for a possible counter-attack for the run to Griffins. But he's forced onto that outside line then. Vermaak holds the inside away from him at turn 2 at Griffin's Bend. Meanwhile, we still have word there. Yellow flag down in turn 23 for the number 100 of Antonio Angeletta with critical damages. Down through the cuttings then. A fantastic run of things so far between these two. And a great move by Vermaak off the exit of turn 1. And we'll have to cut away from these two to go and catch on board with the race leader. We will be swiftly back on, though, with coverage of that fight for P3. It's only, looking here, 2 clicks away between them. As they right now find themselves half a second. You can see Vermaak just takes off down through Skyline. Has he overcooked it, though? He did have a bit of an awkward run there through the Dipper. We'll catch on with them a little later on, but seeing here down towards the line in the final round of the Shooting Stars Cup by Race Club UK, it's going to be a Simplay Motorsports car to see its first ever victory down across the line then. Matthias Claes wins in Bathurst.
Leader has finished the race.
A formidable drive by Simplay. Not a foot wrong on that one. The 442 victorious in the final round of the Shooting Stars Cup. But it'll be Race Club UK to take the Interleague Championship title here in the Shooting Stars Cup. A brilliant performance then by all teams involved. Friedman to second place. Tyler Vermaak then holds his ground for Team VSR, up and ahead of Lars Rammensperger. Down through to turn 23 then, Tyler Vermaak to see third place after an admirable fight there with Lars Rammensperger. Turns it around to a podium, a great result for Team VSR at the end of round 4. Kieran Rodd, easy driver of the day there. Very few considerations for any other likely candidates, but oh, very nearly. I had a heart attack there. I thought he disconnected. At least see the checkered flag. My goodness. Rodd to the line. Started 25th, up 20 positions. 24th, up 19 positions to 5th. Evans looking at 6th place there, up and ahead of Chris Clements. We see there down across the line, we saw Nico Prince was pirouetting across there, collided by the 146 of Juan C. Ampuero. Evans for 6th place. Chris Clements looking at 7th with Chris Davies looking at 8th and already solidified at the back of the top 10 there. Wright and McNally by 4.8 seconds apart, 9th and 10th. Clements for 7th. Davies looking at 8th. Your winner then in the last round of the Shooting Stars Cup goes to Simplay Racing, and Simplay Motorsports is Matthias Claes in the 442 McLaren. 3 of the 4 teams involved in this championship walk away with a race win. 2 wins for VSR, 1 for Race Club UK, and now 1 for Simplay Motorsport. A great result then. We see the final results coming up there on the left-hand side. Matthias Claes wins in Bathurst, Friedman 2nd, Vermaak 3rd, Rammensperger 4th, Rodd in 5th, and Evans in 6th, Clements in 7th, Davies in 8th, Wright in 9th, and McNally in 10th, Ampuero in 11th, with Butler in 12th, Angeletta in 13th, McMillan in 14th, Godden in 15th, Leish in 16th, Winspear in 17th, Lamming in 18th, Bacala in 19th, and Prince in 20th. DNFs from Dominguez, Burns, Hermsen, Varga, and Winnings. Well, that is just about the cut of it. And your champions for the Shooting Stars Cup, Race Club UK in the Teams Championship. And what a performance it's been by them in this Interleague Series, and what a wonderful project it has been for us to get involved with here on TRTN. And what a series it's been. Right now we just wait off of any other words here. We've race control need a word. And what a series this has been then. A fantastic project to get us involved with. And we thank the folks over at Race Club UK for bringing TRTN on board to the racing. Sorry, my mistake there. Lost for words, for bringing us on board to the Shooting Stars Cup series. It's been a fantastic thing to get involved with, to see all of these leagues go head to head. So many drivers that we've seen before, and so many new drivers now on our radar. It's been a fantastic journey for us, and we hope that you all enjoyed viewing in at home. And we've not really much else to say besides the fact that it has been a wonderful project to get involved with, and just having a look at one last time there before the end of this broadcast what the donation goal ended up getting up to. We're still at 80% of the way, £808 raised over 4 rounds of competition in this series, and that is going to go straight towards Shooting Star Children's Hospices. And what a fantastic thing to see then. A really, really wonderful series. And that wraps up what's been a very busy day for us here on TRTN. 3 races on the 16th. Well, with not really much else left to say. That's all from us here on TRTN. What a project it's been. And we thank you very much for watching at home. We thank Race Club UK for bringing us on this project. It was really quite something. That's all from us here on TRTN. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and good night.